Hello, beautiful soul family. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Soul Light and Body. And today we have such a good topic. And we are all struggling at some point in time in a mental prison. And Yormi Kirkus is here to free us today.
I don't know about freeing, but definitely helping with some a little bit of some strategies. But yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
he is here with one or two or three or four keys that we could
yeah,
use to
Mm-hmm.
free ourselves from this mental prison
Yeah.
and help us to understand about our struggles in life and how we could look at struggles as something very positive for ourselves. And also, he's giving away a freebie today. So you've got to join the show. You got to stick to the end to get the freebie, and it's a real worthwhile freebie. And
Yes.
also, today he's going to help us to go into a different loop because many times we are in one loop and that loop is not working for us. So today, Jeremy is here to help us to go into a different loop. So just grab a cup of coffee, grab your notepad, grab your pen or a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and just enjoy the show today. I'm Karen Pascal. I'm a holistic health and wellness coach and a co-author of two ebooks with my sister, Joan Williams. And happy Monday to all of you. I'll now hand you over to Miss Joan Williams.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Good morning to all of you. And we have a beautiful guest today. And it's such a great topic because Yermi is going to help us to unlock what we are in prison with. He will give us the key to unlock everything. And today I want to ask you, what are you not letting? What are you holding on to that is creating that prison for you? So we have today's a lucky day for us because we have Jeremy Kirkus here, and he's gonna really shine that spotlight and give us that key that we can unlock what is creating that imprisonment. My name is Joan Williams, holistic health and wellness coach, and co-author of two ebooks as well with Karen. And let's sit back, relax. This is a very important topic that Jeremy is gonna dive deep and pull those things out that have us anchored and we're not able to release it. You hear me? Welcome.
thank you so much. I'm
Welcome,
really humbled.
Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know if I have the key to everybody's solutions or something like that. I could only share, I can only share first of all what I went through
Mhm.
personally,
Yes.
and then I could share some of the research that I've done and that I'm in the middle of doing still. I could share a little bit about how this has helped others.
Right.
But primarily, what I want to really share is just really a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, what we've been talking a lot about in our back and forth, it's really all a mindset. And I believe everybody has the keys in them already. It just sometimes it's like, what's this key? What's this key doing here? And we don't know how to identify it. We hope today to at least tell you this is what this key does, show you where the door is and then allow you to walk through it.
Yeah.
Um, so thank you so much for this platform, and you are incredible with what you're doing. So I'm very, very humbled to be part of this group.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy.
So much. We're grateful that you're here with us and joining us and going to teach us all the things that can guide us through this life, this journey of life. So Yermi is also he's also formed a consultant agency, and he partners with individuals and personal, and just really to help them to thrive, like what he's going to teach us today. Help them to thrive in their world so that they can live their true essential self and their business can thrive. So, Yermi, tell us your journey in life and what has brought you to this point here where you can grace us with your presence.
Sure, absolutely. So again, thank you so much for having me. So originally, let's start from the very beginning in a sense. I was born in Montreal, Canada, and in a very, very nice community where the community was all about outreach and to help out other groups and other people. Where our community was located was in a we had there were a lot of like different minorities and different groups that were around us, and the leaders of our community figured that if we all could help out each other, we'll be better off. And I just really, really connected with that kind of message, this aspect of the community, and sometimes even outside of our own, religious belief and whatever, but all the communities around us. So I really connected with that message. And it got to a point where, as a child, I would sometimes run away from class just to take part of different volunteer opportunities, just because how much I really connected and I loved it. So my teachers, my principal, my parents, my family of people around me were like, you should stay in school. You shouldn't run away. And basically, one day you could help people as a profession. It's a legitimate thing it's a legitimate profession to have to help people. But at the time when I was younger, that in my brain interpreted to being a doctor. Doctors help people as a profession. So I went to sign up for medical school. Got into pre-med. I was a volunteer as an EMT, first responder, and I was working in a cardiac rehab center because my dreams was to become a cardiologist. And one thing led to another, and I started realizing that medical school was just really not for me. So I drop out of medical school and I go to what I know best, which is business, just because I grew up in a family that's all business entrepreneurs and stuff like this. So business just made sense. It was what I was born to in a sense. So I went there, and one thing leads to another, and then 2010 happens. And in 2010, my wife at the time, she leaves me and she takes away the kids. My mom dies, and then the business that I was building is forced to shut down. And all these three major life events happen within 10 days.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was like a really, really big situation. Most people get hit with like 1 ton of bricks, but I got hit with 3 tons of bricks in a very short period of time. And so pretty much my life collapses the way I know it, and a major, major trauma. And it was very hard for me to get through it. So fast forward about 18 or so months, I got the support I needed. I had a rabbi mentor, got me the help I needed, therapy. They kind of like forced me into AA, and I'm like, I don't have a drug or alcohol problem. Why am I being put into this program? They're like, no, this is a really good program. It helps with recovery. You could really use it. So I end up there. And through that recovery, I learned about, being helpful again to society and being of service to others. And I said, wow, that was my happy place. That's where I really related. And so I started looking for opportunities to go back to my happy place. And pretty much this opportunity, in a sense, fell in my lap, where they needed a chaplain in the prison. And so I went and I volunteered as a chaplain in the prison for a little while. And to be honest, in the beginning, it was not so altruistic, because I kind of wanted to say I get to go into prison and walk out whenever I want, kind of like that funny thing. That's how it started. But then very quickly did I realize that I was doing really some good work there, and I was really helping people, and people are really in need of of help. And that's when I discovered, I said, wow, maybe I should learn psychology because I already have my foot in the door. I'm helping these people. Perhaps I should go, study psychology. And so that's what I did. I went, I studied psychology. I was thinking of becoming a therapist. And then one thing led to another, and I started developing programs in the prison. And these programs were helping these inmates cope with, where they were. And we were going beyond, I was helping them see beyond their crime or behind, their judgment. Obviously, they're responsible for what they've done. Don't get me wrong. But it was important to sort of free their minds from where they were. And that is physical prison, but also mostly that mental prison that they added to themselves. And we were trying to find meaning and purpose in this really, really dark and scary place in a sense. And it started working. And then I started like doing this for almost a decade. I was like, wait a second, these people are living better than my family, my brothers, my sisters, other business entrepreneurs, like other people who the only crime they did is that they're trying to make this world a better place with the businesses that they're performing. So I was just like, wow, I have to figure out a way of how to translate all the stuff that I'm doing in the prisons and help my people, people that I grew up with, people that I'm really good at. And then that's when I discovered that there's something called industrial psychology, which is the psychology of businesses, of industries. Um, so that's basically how I came about to, I call up my boss. It was December of 2019. I said, listen, I love what I'm doing. It's incredible. But I feel like my impact is only hitting a wall. And I think I need to get a little bit beyond that, I feel like the world needs to hear what else, my potential, what else I have to offer. And so we set a date. It was going to be March 10th of 2020. And that was the date we decided that was going to be my last day at work. And I was going to launch my business after that. And little did we know that the pandemic happened, around that same time. But it was just meant to be. And here we are today. So we're spreading, this model that I created, this thing that really, really helped so many people in such difficult times, and hopefully could help other people during whatever situation they are in. Doesn't necessarily have to be as traumatic as what I went through or what people in the prisons are going through, but it could be applied in any area of your personal or professional life.
Wow, that is amazing. That you first, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing the story. And yes, you had sadness, and we give you the condolence for that. But also, you have come into a new awakening.
Mm-hmm.
You've come into a new awakening where were able to have, which support is so important. You had the support system that was able to move you and help you to evolve forward. And then, as you mentioned, you found your happy place again.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you excited? And you serve, you found that joy again. And I think as the audience who are listening, even though what you're going through, at the end of it, you can find joy again with the support system that you have in others to help you with. And so when you found that joy again, that spark, the ignite everything. And then you were able now to move into a space and that you may never thought that you would have been in, is to go to the prison. And you were able to give those people some kind of value, and you will help them to move them beyond where they are and see something broader and visualize something different.
Mm-hmm.
So help us to understand the impact that they were able to see themselves and how they were able to change some way, shape or form.
Sure. Yeah. So very, very briefly, if anybody understands anything about the prison world, the prison world is a very, very difficult place. So the typical system, the way it works, is that somebody commits a crime, they get arrested for their crime, they end up in a place called jail, which is like a holding before they get there to their court and before they get to their sentencing. Jail is the most stressful part because people still kind of are in limbo. They don't know what's going to be with themselves. What does it look like? How long will they be here? These kind of things. So they're in a very, very high stress environment. Um, then they go to court. Then they get sentenced. Then they have to commit to their sentence, whatever it is. They end up in a place called prison, and then prison is where the long term whatever they have to serve out their sentence, their time. And so what typically happens is that the human psychology goes through a breakdown in a sense. um, so they become less and they feel more and more distant from humanity when this process happens. They constantly are reminded of the crime they have committed for whatever circumstances, whatever situations. We're putting that aside for now, but what actually happens to the person is that they break down who they actually are, and now they're being titled a criminal. Now they're becoming, it could go as far as murder, rapist, other terrible things. um, and they start adding on labels, and they start adding on things that just cloud their mind with their surroundings, with who they are, with what they are. And so again, this is completely not justifying crime. It's not justifying anything. We're just looking at it from a different perspective about what people go through when they fall under this prison, in a sense. I'm trying to get to the idea of what does a mental prison look like. It's this constant loop that they are doing, that they're playing out their circumstances, which led to their crime, which led to their arrest, which led to where they are now. So it's this constant loop that's in their mind, which makes them a victim. The entire time they are a victim. Now, what I've discovered, I said, let's see if we could turn this around, and if we could focus on bringing that humanity back to them. Let's look at who they are as a human. And then if we could sort of like, really focus on their humanity, then we could focus on helping them sort of like recover from this trauma that they are going through. And hopefully, maybe, just maybe, we could even change them at their core. I don't know, but let's see if this works. And that's what we went for. And so we created this program that really went to focus on who they are. Because I strongly believe, I'm from the thesis that people are not bad. They're not born bad. They're not, you know, like they committed a crime. It could have been out of desperation. It could have been out of misalignment. It could have been just the circumstance that they found themselves in. It could be many, many, many different reasons and many different scenarios that, propel them in this direction. But obviously they have to take responsibility. Obviously they have to take, this is their journey in life. I cannot explain. I often say that just incredible souls end up in prison. I met a lot of incredible people there. I wouldn't be able to survive a day there. So I'm not good enough for prison. That's why probably I'm not there. Um, but there are some incredible people there, and we just have to find and discover their true self. And when we started doing that, and when that, like I've seen some seriously, by society standards, some seriously bad people completely 360, completely transform. These big macho strong people break down and cry and completely change around. And you see that once we go to the core. And that was kind of like my own wake up call. And I said, business entrepreneurs, individuals, people who are trying to make a real honest living, never did a bad thing in their life, in a sense. They're not hurting other people. If we could kind of like guide them before anything else. Or it's not fair for the person who went through what I went through, let's say. It's not fair for me to go through that perpetual whirlwind. How do I get myself out? How do others get themselves out? And so that's why, I left the prison system to help others who are in that whirlwind, and find that amazing and great life.
Wow.
That's truly amazing, Yermi. And you're here to help us this morning to really understand that many times we are being labeled as bad. We are not good enough,
Mhm.
and we end up living in that loop for the rest of our lives.
Hmm.
But you're here to let us know that we could come out from that loop.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
We could go ahead, Lord Yarmy, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just I want to add this one thing, and then I definitely want to hear what you're saying. Is just that it's really important to realize that the world could have their opinion about you. That's the world's, it's their right too. You know what I mean? They're going to label you whatever they're going to label you. But the biggest sin, and I call it a sin, the biggest sin you could commit is the sin that you commit to yourself, is if you buy that lie. If they are the ones who are calling you, whatever they're calling you, whatever they're shaming you with, you know, that's your fault if you let that affect you. That is where that responsibility comes in. You see what I mean? So it's really important that if it's you who put yourself in your own mental prison. And I used to tell the people in the prisons, I said, just because these walls over here, people call that prison, doesn't mean this is prison. And this is the only thing you can control. So let's get out of here. And it doesn't matter what is around us. And it doesn't matter, where we find ourselves in. You see, so that right here is the message that I'm trying to bring today, is that let the world think whatever they want. I'm not here to change, the world or whatever. I'm here to first change myself, change my immediate surroundings, those who want to hear me talk, change. And then if that ripples, that's amazing. But my first focus is here first, and then, close surroundings, and then whatever leads from there.
Absolutely true.
That is so true.
Because many times we allow society to affect us, and we try to live to please society, and that's the biggest mistake we make.
Yeah.
That's the biggest mistake we make with our lives. We try to fit into society, to be there, but we need to stand out. We need to stand out. We need to be ourselves, and we need to be good enough for ourselves.
Yeah.
And once we start to look at life and look at ourselves and know our self-worth, know our values, then is when the direction start to change with the loop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is the difference between thriving and living free?
That's a great question. One of my favorite ones. So for example, one of the biggest things that people want to do is that they always say, I want to live financially free. I want to be free to do whatever. I want, to work in a job that I'm free to come and go as I please, or I'm free of responsibility, or, all these free. This is what we hear a lot. And yeah, so that's exactly this. It's this model that we created is basically that everybody goes through the struggle. Okay. And that's that S quadrant over there. And this is no matter what we're going to do, no matter what's going to happen forever in life, everybody's going to struggle. And a lot of people, the mistake that they make is that they don't want to struggle. No. The idea is that we have to embrace the struggle. Now, those who put too much meaning into the struggle, which in a sense is a meaningless, if they don't have meaning and purpose in their life, they very, very quickly fall into that captivity mode. So that quadrant that's right on the bottom, they fall into this victimization. They fall into this mental prison. But what we really, truly need to do is that if we add meaning to the struggle, if we discover what's the struggle for, that helps us find our own freedom. And freedom could be in any area of life. But it's not just enough to be free. Everybody wants to thrive. And thrive basically means, and here's the difference, is that you're firing on all cylinders. So which means is that, yes, you could be maybe, financially free, but maybe your relationships are not doing too well. Maybe your health is not doing too well. Okay, so maybe you're really good at your finances and you're good at your health, but what's that good if again, your relationship is not healthy, if your family is falling apart, so thriving basically means I'm doing well in all areas of my life. And the biggest common mistake that most people do is that they want to be firing at 100% in all areas of their life. And so they're putting so much energy into like just their finances or just their family or just their, that's good. It's important to work on these things. But what this model is trying to tell you is that take the struggle, whatever's currently, your challenge, your hardship. So let's say you're in debt, for example, and that debt is causing you to have arguments with your spouse, and these arguments with your spouse are causing you stress, and now you're binge eating, and now all of a sudden, you find yourself 5 to 10 pounds overweight. You know what I mean? So you see how these progressions could put you in this loop, in this prison. But what we're trying to say is that let's take this struggle, let's take this hardship, let's channel it in the right direction. In other words, what we like to say, let life happen through you, not to you. When you learn how to channel this life through you, what ends up happening is that I could see the challenge for what it is, do the steps that I need to do to attack that challenge. My mind is set free. My mind is clear. I have a healthy relationship with my spouse. So I put up boundaries. I say, listen, when I'm dealing with finances, I need a little bit extra space, let's say, just an example. And then it's like making sure that when I have this stress, I have an extra lock on the pantry that I don't go for the potato chips or something like that, So these are just like examples, but the idea here is to take that S quadrant, add meaning to it, and avoid the C part of it and go into the F and T. F and T work together. Whatever is typically you want to be free of, put that all into a package, but fire on all cylinders at the same time, in an easy and in a smaller way. Don't try to solve all your problems overnight. Work slowly on each part, at each given time.
Wow. That's great.
It is. It's great when you could really break this down.
Mm-hmm.
For someone to understand that their struggle is not to give up. The struggle, that there is something behind the struggle. The struggle is in our lives for a meaning. The struggle is in our lives to take us to the next step of our life. It's to start a new chapter of our lives. We need to go through the struggle to really go to the other side, to understand exactly what's happening. But a lot of times we as humans, we want to go around the struggle, but there is no way. If you go around the struggle, it's going to come again.
Yep.
You got to go through the struggle. And when you go through that struggle, there is where we all can understand exactly why the struggle was there for us.
Yeah, that.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say, like the panel discussion we had a few weeks ago. I think the first thing also to add another layer in that is acceptation and acknowledgement that this is what is happening. Because I think when we resent it, it becomes much more challenging, it becomes much harder. But when we add acceptation and acknowledgement that, okay, this is what it is. And then when you accept it, it makes it much more easy, the process easy, because then you can move through with all the things that you're letting us know. And so then we can really move through. We know this is a struggle, but then let's see what value we can become out of this and move forward.
Right.
So I think acceptation is very key, and acknowledging that this is what it is.
Could I add one more layer to that? So we're going deep. That's what you guys asked for. So I couldn't agree more about the acceptance. Acceptance is the key to anything. And one of the things about acceptance is that I'm backing off. And you see, yeah, exactly that comment. Going through that struggle is hard. I'll tell you why. It's an easy formula. It's called EGO. It's called ego.
Yes.
Okay. Ego is the reason why going through that struggle is hard. It's really that simple. It's really that easy. And let me explain why. The minute we edge God out, EGO, edging God out, if we edge God out, what happens is that we have this void within us, and this void needs to be filled with something, and it's going to catch whatever it can. And so it starts filling itself up with itself, because that's all it has. If I edge God out, and if I edge other people out, if I edge anything that's other than me out of me, then there's only me to fill me up. That's what happens. And that's when ego gets prevalent. And what happens is that ego is a form of a block. It's a form of it's this wall that we put ourselves into. It's that prison that we put ourselves into. And what happens is that now anything that comes our way, any struggle that comes our way, doesn't have room to go through us anymore. Now it's facing a challenge. Now it's this, okay? It's bumping against a wall. And what happens is that stand in front of somebody who's coming at you with a punch, right? And they hit you. And that hurts, That's going to hurt. If somebody hits you, somebody's going to hurt you. But if I now remove this block, if I remove this wall, if I remove, these elements of filling myself up, and I fill myself up with others, or I allow certain things to go through me, I allowed myself to step back away from, myself, and let God, let life just happen. Okay. If I do all that, now I have this void in me, but it's not a void that makes me feel lost or, not worthy or anything. I humble myself and I allow God to show me what he wants from me. And I allow the universe to tell me what it wants from me. And this is something that we were talking about a little bit earlier when we were warming up for the show, is that what tends to happen is that we as a society, through generations and through different things that we went through as a nation, as people, as a world, made us desensitized to the universe and to the energies that are around us. And now the universe is trying to get our attention and saying, hey, I need you in this direction. I need you here. I need you, whatever, right? And there's no way for it to catch our attention. So what it does is that it sends us nudges and it pokes us. And it tries to get our attention. And sometimes that's painful because, hey, if I poke you, that's going to hurt sometimes. If I poke you really, really hard many, many times, that's going to hurt. And so the idea is to, whenever something happens, right, to you, through you, however we want to interpret it right now, if you're going through, and struggle means a lot of things, a hardship, a challenge, whatever could seem as negative, I have to take it a second. I have to take a stop. And first acknowledge ow, this hurts. Okay. Wow, there's something happening in my life. But instead of looking for who to blame, and instead of looking, why is it happening to me? Or why? Or, instead of doing that, take a second and say, what just happened? What's the universe trying to tell me with this? What's a lesson I need to learn from this? Where do I grow from this? What am I being called for? Does God have something that he's trying to tell me that I'm not paying attention to? Is it time to shift? Is it time to do, what is it, right? And so when you feel that discomfort, that means it's time for change. And instead of falling into this whirlwind, that captivity, look for a way of how to, break free or thrive. And again, one more time, the difference between free and thrive is that the free person sees the struggle as a hardship that needs to be overcome. Right? I'm going to pause there for a second because I want that to sink in. Free people see struggle as an opportunity to grow. So it's still a hardship. It's still painful. I accept the pain, that acceptance, right? I accept the pain. I'm accepting the calling, and I will make out of this, pain, I'm going to make something beautiful out of it. But the person who thrives, and this is why I wanted to go one step deeper, the person who thrives actually sees the struggle as a blessing, not as an opportunity. Opportunity is good. Yes, it's an opportunity. But every time I am faced with a struggle, Now I say, thank you, God. Blessed are you, universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for the opportunity to grow. So now I see that as a blessing. So I thank you for showing me where you want me to be. So it's a higher level of meaningfulness, It's a higher level of acceptance. It's where I recognize that everything that comes to me is God ordained. And by the way, when I say God, I just mean, universe, energies, however you interpret it, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. Something greater than you. Um, and so I see that thank you, universe, for telling me what you want, right? So thank you for telling me where I need to be. So again, freedom is when I see it as an opportunity to grow. It's still a bad thing, but I'm going to turn it into something good. The person who thrives sees the good from the beginning. He sees the struggle as a good thing and sees it as a blessing and accepts the blessing and then uses that blessing for the greater good for himself, his family, and for people around him.
Wow. What a
Wow.
beautiful way to explain
Yeah.
that. That is such a beautiful way
Thank
how
you.
you really explain that to the audience and to us. So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that use your struggle as a tool to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And when you use your struggle as a tool, then you get the inspiration, and that feeds the motivation.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, 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 yes. You know, as you said there too, that it's a blessing when we go through these struggles, because when we come out from that struggle and when we look back, we
Mhm.
say, wow,
Mhm.
look what we have achieved
Right.
Mhm.
from coming through that struggle.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing that we have struggles, because without these struggles, we cannot able to know what's there.
Mm.
The struggle help us to understand the true meaning, what awaits us there.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So when we go through the struggle, we able to appreciate what comes to us,
Right.
and we able to thrive. But as
Mm.
both you, Jeremy, and Joan said, the acceptance, the surrender is very,
Yeah.
very important.
That's
Yeah.
big.
And many of us, it's so hard for us for the acceptance and to surrender.
Mm-hmm.
So true. I
Yeah,
actually want to I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
one second. This is a very, very important question that whoever Facebook user is here, it's a really important question to to highlight. Yeah, so in my personal statistics that I kept, so number one, statistics are showing that recidivism rates are really, really high, and so this is also national on a national average. Those who have not learned anything from their prison experience will keep coming back. That's just a granted, guaranteed thing. In the program, that those who went through my program, again, those who applied the lessons that they learned, those who continuously applied the lessons that they learned, um, today are doing so phenomenally well. I could give you three great examples. One person came out of the prison, and he went to work for a car, like a dealership, like a car dealership. Today he's grown and he's the head of three of these car dealerships that the same owner
Wow.
owns. And high-end cars, high-end, very, very successful individual, really living an incredible life. Go imagine from prison just a few years ago, driving around in a Bentley today,
Wow.
which is unbelievable. Another person came out of the prison, got a little janitor type of job, from the janitor job, climbed up to become the manager of the building. And today he's one of the CEOs of the company that originally hired him. And today he's, again, thriving. He's the head of all the management company, um, built himself a really incredible life. A third example is this young kid came out of the prison. Today he's studying to become a lawyer, is acing. He's a 4.0 average in his class. Honor student, doing incredibly well. Has a small business on the side, also helping himself, pay his way through college so he doesn't have a lot of debt and stuff like this. Again, thriving, doing incredibly well. Now there were those that unfortunately, they didn't apply the lessons that they did. So they kept going back to prison. They kept going back to prison for higher crimes. One guy has now life in prison for the rest of his life. It's really, really sad. He just didn't do the steps he needed to do. Some people committed suicide. Some people were killed. Some terrible, terrible stories. But again, it's when we choose the right path. And again, I'm not going to say that my path is the way to go because we all have our journey. But at least it's a direction where you could start heading on. And I always say that you have two paths in life, the good one and the bad one. On the good one, you're going to find life. On the bad one, you're going to find the opposite of life. So that's where the freedom of choice comes in, is that now that at least make the right decision. So, and now you have the tools and the resources and the support that you have to live that free and incredible life. And all I hope to ever do is just position myself as a resource, to help people find those solutions.
Incredible story. Thanks for sharing that, and Facebook user for asking that question.
Yeah.
Can you talk about mindset?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, all of what we've done is really mindset. That's really what it is. I could see that, that struggle, that pain. For example, my story, I could see the divorce, the death, and the losing the business as as the world is this terrible place. I have no place in the world. I could fall into that depression, which I did, by the way. I fell into the depression. I fell into that suicidal way of thinking. My life has ended and I have no way out of this life. I said all those things in my own mind. But then at that time, I was about, 24, 25 years old. And I just looked at myself and I said, is this the way life ends? Or is this what God has intended for me? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And so there needs to be something more. And so I think this story is going to demonstrate exactly what we're talking about here. One time there was this military, a country decided to take their military and they wanted to create the most ideal soldier. So there was this rigorous, sort of training that, you could apply and you could come to this, to this regiment and whatever it was. And so they took, so many people. And because of the rigorous training, they broke it down to, a very, very small group. And that small group went through insane, rigorous training once again until, and they kept eliminating, people as they went along until there were 3. So there were 3 people left. And these are the top of the top. This is the cream of the cream. They went through all the stuff that the Army threw at them. The Army has invested millions, if not billions of dollars into them. And now it's the final test. And for the final test, they're taking the 3 soldiers to a big open field. And the commander yells at them and says, "Run and don't stop until I say so." And so the 3 soldiers start running, and they're running at their top speed. And, they're breaking their records and all the stuff that they're doing, and they're running. And all of a sudden, one guy starts seeing, and he's like, "Ooh, it seems like there's something there at the end, and it doesn't look like a field, And so he kind of short stops, and he's like, "I'm not, And so the commander yells at him, and he goes, "Go home, you're done." And this guy's disqualified. The 2 others are still running, and then the one guy, he really reaches till the end, and there's a cliff right there, and he short stops, and he's like just about to almost fall, but he catches himself, and the commander yells, and he goes, "Disqualified." He cancels that guy out. The 3rd guy just goes right off the cliff, and it kind of like imagine that cartoon where the guy's running off the cliff and he's like still dangling his feet there, and then he falls down, right? And he falls right down, and he's going down, and he's falling and falling and falling, 10, 20, 30 feet. All of a sudden, a net comes flying out of the mountainside and catches him, and the guy survives.
Wow.
And so when he goes back to to base, everybody's like, how did you know to continue running, and how did you know that they're going to catch you, and how did you know, like, what did you do? That was a lot of guts to just like run off that cliff like that. So he goes, the military would have never invested millions and billions of dollars into me to just throw me off a cliff. There had to be something more, you know? And so that's really the lesson in life, is that if we're going through all these hardships, and sometimes it feels like we've hit that cliff, and sometimes it feels like we're falling off, and sometimes it feels like all these things, there's something greater happening. Go figure what we don't know until we know, you know what I mean? And so that acceptance that you guys were talking about, just letting it happen, letting life happen to you and through you, not letting it affect you in a negative way, all that is mindset, and it all burns down to just simply having, a high level of faith and trust in this greater system, because we're all destined for greatness. We're all destined for incredibleness. But more often than not, we're the ones standing in our own way.
Wow. Yarmi, you're amazing.
Yes, you are amazing, Yermi. You
Yeah.
are amazing.
It's-
I really love that story.
The story, like I know we all could just see it. You brought us along on the journey with the story that you shared. That's amazing. It's powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. How to become exceptional, irresistible.
Yes, that's the $1 million question.
Yes.
Um, so again, exceptional means more than the average, more than the regular. Again, that regular person just wants to live a normal, free life. Doesn't have to. And when I say free, I mean like free of worry, free of hardship, free of anxiety, free of all these things. That's the normal, regular person. When living an exceptional life is taking that hardship and making something out of it, taking that challenge and doing something better than. From a very young age, we were told, oh, this big dream that you have, well, that's impossible, or that's never going to happen. Well, you know what? I've been told so many times, I have very big dreams and goals and ambitions. I cannot tell you how many times I was told impossible, or you're a dreamer, or you're a fantasizer, or all these different things. And I told people, I said, listen, yes, I dream a lot, but that stays in bed. And when I get up and I go to the street, I go and I make those dreams come true. And more times than I could count, I've accomplished that. In fact, my wife that I'm married to, everybody told me she doesn't exist. You'll never marry her. You'll never find her. And it was a struggle to find her. I'm not going to lie. It was very, very hard, because I was looking for this ideal woman that I had in my mind. And I wrote a 4-page description of what she's like. And I was measuring people up against this list. And everybody told me, you're crazy. You'll just never find this idealistic wife, in a sense. Obviously I was relatively realistic with what I was asking for, but I was also asking for, in a sense, a 1%er, in a sense. And it's finding a needle in a haystack. But I saw every struggle as another step closer to that wife. Every woman I dated, I was learning for myself what works and what doesn't work for me. And I'm one step closer to, my goal. And it took me 6 years, but I ended up finding her. And a lot of obstacles were set in the way that I had to consciously get out of my own way. I could have said no to many opportunities. And if I had have said no to those opportunities, I would have never met my wife. I just had to simply say yes to everything. I simply had to accept everything. I simply had to put myself in these places for everything. So in other words, living an exceptional life means I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and I'm going to work on myself. Being exceptional means I work on myself daily to live this ideal. I have my core values, I have my ambitions, I have my mission, I have my vision, I have everything is set up, and I'm going towards that goal, and nothing could stop me. And now when I live this kind of life and when other people see, wow, this guy's living such an exceptional life. How did he do it? Naturally, that person becomes irresistible because everybody starts getting attracted to that person to say, what's that person doing? I want that too. And so exceptionally irresistible basically means, living that above and beyond life that attracts other people to you, not for that reason, but, just naturally that's what it does. And could you imagine having a business that everybody just wants to buy from you and you never need to sell? That's pretty exceptionally irresistible. So that's basically what we're all about and what we do.
Yeah, yeah. That is such a beautiful way to put it over, Yermi, because many times we put ourselves down, you know, and it's a beautiful thing when you said that you made that list of all the things that you're looking for within this individual.
Mm-hmm.
And in spite of all the noise, you still keep focused on that list. This is what I want. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for in this individual.
Yeah.
And because of the mindset, it led you to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And in spite of all that you had to go through, it was leading you to the individual.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
many times we cannot give up. If we're looking for that particular picture that we're painting, and we got to go through all of these loops,
Mm-hmm.
it's taking us one step closer to what we want for our lives. That is such a beautiful way how you put it over there.
Congratulations.
I love it.
Sure.
I love it. And I hope all you viewers are taking notes, because it's very important to take notes that you could always go back and look at it and say, you know what, I heard this from Yermi, and maybe I could start doing this to see how it's going to work for me. So I hope you're taking notes.
Yeah.
Yermi, tell us about a freebie today. You're giving
Yes.
away a freebie today.
That is. And it actually also answers the how would you explain the thriving question that's right here by Tommy. It's again, the thriving is really this sense of, firing on all cylinders. I have a great relationship with my wife. I have a great relationship with my kids. I have a great relationship with my family. I'm overall healthy. I'm going towards, being financially free. My business is doing well. All these things is called thriving. And, in this freebie that I'm about to share with you all, is basically a 1 hour workshop that basically talks about this quadrant, and it walks through each step. What does it mean to go through each of these steps, and how do we ultimately reach to that thriving part? And ultimately, it's really, thriving is a gift that you give yourself, and it's something that you give yourself every single day. The moment you stop living what's called a thriving life, that means we have tools and different things that you can apply in your life today. And I'm just going to give them to you right here. It's happiness, good attitude, and good character. So if you stop, if there's a break in any of these areas, if you have the wrong people around you, if you don't have the healthy boundaries that are around you, if your happiness is being affected by external factors, if you cannot interpret your life in a good way, in a positive way, and if you behave in a negative way towards situations, all that is going to affect your thriving. You may have a free life. How many rich people and people that are financially free that we know but are not happy, and who are not satisfied, and who are always still doing crazy things to look for the next fix? That's not called thriving. So thriving is really about firing on all cylinders with the right and healthy tools that are there for you. Something that that's what we offer. But in the workshop, what you're going to learn is that how do you go from the struggle to the thriving without falling into that captivity, because the captivity is that dysfunction that a lot of people face and they just don't know how to get out of. So that's what the workshop is about. That's that freebie that we're offering.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful, Yermi. Thank you so much for giving away this freebie, because it would help a lot of people to really understand and how to restructure
Hmm.
themselves and understand about happiness, understand that the person who you associate yourself with, how it could affect your life, understanding all of these pointers.
Yeah.
So this freebie that Yermi is giving away today, the link to the freebie is in the comments, and you could go click on it, sign up, and Yermi is gonna give you something really good to walk away with.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
every second Tuesday of the month. Just for you to know, it's something that reoccurs every second Tuesday of the month. Again, it's free, so you could join. The next one is, I think, in 3 weeks or so. But yeah, but definitely join us, and at your own time, at your own pace. They definitely want to have you at the workshop.
Yes.
Wonderful, 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 Yermi.
But those are good tools that you're going to provide in that session that can help all of us to move forward and
Yeah,
set the tone.
yeah, and set the tone indeed, and set the tone. Yeah, yeah, for our lives. Yermi, it's a blessing to really have you here this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That you could really help us to understand life on a very deeper level, and understanding our struggles, and use the struggles as a tool for us to thrive and to live an irresistible life, exceptional, irresistible life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit in with us today. And to
absolutely.
all the
Thank you.
viewers out there, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today. And I hope you take some notes, but you have a great opportunity with the freebie that Yermi is giving away today, that you could go to the workshop and you could help yourself with some of the tools that he's going to give to you in the workshop. So sign up for the workshop every first Tuesday, you said, of every month.
Every second Tuesday of every
Every
month.
second Tuesday of every month, go sign up for the workshop, and all his handles are there. So just join in with him, and you'll get the good stuff. Any
Yeah.
words before you leave, Yermi?
I mean, other than you guys are absolutely incredible, the stuff that you guys are doing is just amazing. You have a beautiful community here, so that's
Thank you.
amazing. I saw the comments coming through, really, really heavy hitters. I wish I had the time to really hit and respond to everybody, but I will go back. I will go on Facebook. I usually am not there that often, but for your group, I'll go back, and if I haven't responded to anybody, definitely connect with me, and definitely we'll have that conversation. Um, if you have any further questions, I'm here for you. You have all my handles. You could definitely connect with me, and definitely we could continue this conversation. And I hope to see you in the workshop. And yeah, I mean, if you sign up today, you're still going to get the email, and you're still going to get the reminders, and you're still going to be in that next workshop. And again, if I could be of any value to you, that's what we're here for. We're here as a resource. But again, Joan and Karen, you guys are absolutely incredible with what you're doing.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
a big fan. I'm rooting for you. You have an
Thank you.
amazing program. People should definitely go through your program,
Thank
because it's
you.
really important, and we need more people like you. So
Thank
incredible
you.
what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you.
We will have.
Go ahead, Sean.
No, I was telling you, I mean, that we're going to have him back and do part 2.
Yes,
For
we
sure.
will.
Mm-hmm.
We
Anytime.
will.
Yes.
Yes, we will. Before I leave, the beautiful thing is when the universe align us, that we could able to deliver. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it's because we have surrender, acceptance. That is why all the tribes coming together to make this world a better place.
Exactly it.
Yes, that is exactly what is happening. Thank you so much, Yermi.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Sean.
you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone that joined us today to make this show a success. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye-bye.